Okay, settling into the body, finding the body in this space. And giving some attention to the posture. Just letting the legs and hips sink in to the cushion or the chair. Allowing the spine to rise up out of the hips. You're reaching toward the ceiling, reaching toward the sky in a gentle way, without becoming stiff or rigid, just bringing energy to the spine. And then letting the head sit gently on top of the spine. Allowing the arms to drop from the shoulders and the hands to settle in the lap. Finding a balance that is alert but free of tension. Encouraging a balance. You might not find it, but encouraging a balance in the body that is alert and free of tension. And then bringing that same sensibility, that same encouragement to the mind, to the heart. A sense of being alert, but free of tension. And content with our conditions. Recognizing that if there's pain in the body, we can be with that and still be happy. If there's confusion or anticipation in the mind, or worries, we can be with those and still be happy. Just noticing, opening to the observer. What is here and what is now? Everything belongs. And recognizing that a sense of everything belongs does not put us into a cage or a trap. We can still do what is best for us. We can still stand up and get an extra blanket. We can move from a cushion to a chair. And moving into silent meditation, it can be helpful to engage an anchor. The sensation of the breath, possibly in the nose, or in the belly, in the chest. A word or a feeling like peace or patience or quiet, something aspirational, can be our anchor. And we don't use our anchors to drown ourselves or bludgeon ourselves or each other. But just as the mind does what the mind's doing, as it wanders into the future, planning, anticipation, worry, or it wanders into the past, rumination, fantasy, memory, we can remember that our anchor is in the present. The anchor is in the body, or the anchor is in the aspiration. And when something pulls our mind away from the anchor, like a sound or a sensation or a smell or a sight. We can be alert to it. Let go of any tension that arises and return to our anchor. I usually start out this period of reflection with a reading from Ajahn Chah, who is the grandfather of this lineage, the lineage that we're connected with. And then I just got to reading. Forgot about us. Know your own body, heart, and mind. Be content with little. Don't be attached to the teachings. Don't go and hold on to emotions. These are just little bits. Some people are afraid of generosity. They feel that they will be exploited or oppressed. In cultivating generosity, we are only oppressing our greed and attachment. This allows our true nature to express itself and become lighter and freer. If you reach out and grab a fire in your neighbor's house, the fire will be hot. If you grab a fire in your own house, that too will be hot. So don't grab at anything that can burn you, no matter what or where it is. How's everybody doing? Yeah, good. How are your people doing? Yeah, good? Good. Excellent. Yeah, today's a funny day. Tik Tok went dark last night, right? And my daughter was crying, you know. It was a moment that brought up a lot of empathy and sympathy. She has a community there, you know, her friends, but also people she's met, people she connects with. She has a lot of her creativity on that platform. She's spent some time building something there. The extent to which I didn't even know, you know. And we were at a friend's house last night, and the platform went down in the US, and her eyes just welled up with tears. Because in that moment, she was really losing something important to her that she had built and grown. And a community of like-minded individuals that she connected with, which isn't all that easy when you're 13, you know. So that's difficult. It was difficult for me as a parent to watch that moment come and go, to be present with it and with her. And I don't, that's not a platform that I've spent a lot of time on, and so I don't have a connection with it in that same way. I don't have a community there. But I could immediately think of all the places that I did have a community and all the places that I felt belonged to me, that I had invested in and cultivated and spent time with. And I'm old enough to have my first and last name at Gmail. And I have a very boring first and last name. I would never get that today. There's probably 20 to 40,000 Jessica Swansons on Gmail at this point. But I entered into that platform when it was just starting. And I have something like 43,000 emails, in my inbox. They're read, but, that's where my marriage started. It's by email, right? My very first communications with my now husband are in my Gmail from 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And my whole Dhamma life is in there because, I just got pdxdhamma.org 2 months ago or something, but before that, it was my Gmail. I can search my Gmail and go back 20 years in Portland Friends of the Dhamma history. And it's my whole life, is here and there. And what's interesting is I don't own it. It's a free platform. It doesn't belong to me. And it could be gone, tomorrow. And what would I do? How would I feel? Am I preparing for that kind of loss? The loss of a communication history, the loss of thousands of contacts and friendships, the loss of my written history. That's my generation's written history, is in our emails, really, I remember, sorry, this is a back in my day Dhamma talk, I guess, but I went to a college in Boston. It was a communications college. And I was in the honors program, and so we were guinea pigs for a lot of things. We got to try out new things sometimes, and they put us all in a room together and told us about email. And my kid doesn't even know how to use email now. That's how things have changed, right? But they put a bunch of us in this computer lab together, told us about how we could write to each other from one computer to the other, showed us how to do it. And I still remember thinking, why would you ever do this? Why would you ever sit in a room with another person and send them a message? Of course, working in offices for years and years after that, that's all I did all day was send people messages from across the room, But at the time, it was kind of this really interesting and new thing that I was trying out, as an adult. And of course, it's email. I don't have to explain it to any of you. I might have to explain it to Julia because now the generations have now changed. But that was the start of my documenting the history of my life, and that's where it all is. And so it's interesting to think, isn't it? that I don't own that, it could be gone. And you're probably seeing where this is going. Who laughed? Yeah. You're seeing where this is going. That's what, the Buddha taught us, is that everything, every conditioned thing, whether we think we own it or not, whether we think we belong to it or not, whether we paid for the subscription or not, whether we gave birth to it or not, every conditioned thing is not ours. It's not mine. Those are the three characteristics of all conditioned phenomenon. A conditioned phenomenon is just a fancy way of saying things. Things and people, nouns, things and people, are so unsatisfactory, dukkha. They're not ultimately satisfying. And they're not ultimately satisfying because they're impermanent. Like this stage is not ultimately satisfying. If we had an earthquake right now, I'd probably be on my butt on the floor or in the basement. This is not going to withstand the test of time. It'll probably be here by the end of today, but it won't be here forever. And look around, what will? None of it. So things aren't ultimately satisfying because they're impermanent, they're inconsistent, they're inconstant, they keep changing. The weather is a good example. If you like it hot, then for several months it's not hot. If you like it cool, cold, for several months it's not cool and cold. And if we want it how we like it, then we're not going to feel satisfied. It's a high today of -6 where my parents live. No, I'm feeling pretty satisfied to be here. It's a balmy 37 or something today. But if it was -6, I'd have some complaints, I don't live there. I had too many complaints. And, things aren't ultimately satisfying because they aren't mine. They don't belong to me. I can't control them. So dukkha, not satisfying. Anicca, not permanent. And anatta, not mine. Not mine. I'm not in control of anything that I think is mine. And the Buddha, in his wisdom, asked us to look at that over and over and over. And that's why Buddhists have a bad reputation as negative nihilists. What is it all about, suffering? No. It's all about seeing things for the way that they are, and then preparing the heart to withstand the winds of the world when they come around. So, if we know all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become separated from me, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. Well, that's a heartful, that's a mouthful. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. So what do I do with that? Do I lay down, cry? Sometimes. But this practice prepares the heart for those eventualities. It prepares us to fight if we need to fight. Well, actually, you can't take that away from me. That's within my rights to have. I'm going to stand up. I've been sitting on this cushion for 20 years creating capacity for this. I can enter into my truth and stand in it. And we can use our practice to prepare to let go. It isn't mine. It isn't satisfying. It is subject to change. It is subject to be born and live its life and die. And so I can use this practice to prepare my heart for that eventuality, to withstand it, to bear it. Dukkha sometimes it's translated literally to that which is hard to bear. Dukkha, suffering, stress, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. I'm just quoting the Buddha here. But I really like the translation, that which is hard to bear, because we all can feel that in our bodies. When we come up against something or in contact with something that is hard to bear, we feel it, we know it, we understand that in our bodies. And then we have to look inside. What's our capacity? What have I built? Have I created? Have I cultivated a way to bear it? And what does that mean? What does bearing it even look like? Well, I think my understanding, my training, is that it looks like holding things without bringing in greed, hatred, and delusion, without lashing out at other people, without lashing out at myself, without, grabbing for the fix, without pretending it doesn't exist, bringing things into the light of day and holding them gently, but with the truth. Okay, now it's time to move. Now it's time for action. Now it's time to let go, or some combination of the things. And this practice, this being with ourselves in quiet, in silence, in spiritual friendship, this being with restraint and seclusion, all of these things prepare us for that which is hard to bear, without making a problem for other people, without bringing up more suffering than there has to be, without following the first arrow with the second arrow of blame and shame, anger and frustration. I left my poor husband this morning with a non-working car and a Christmas gift, a popcorn maker that had been fried by hapless teens, and a congested ear, And he was having a really hard time, and this isn't about me and it's not about him, but, he just said, I'm having a hard day. This is hard. I'm having a hard time. And these are all kind of small things in one way or another, but when we're separated from that which we love, like money to fix all these things, or transportation, which we need to get somewhere, or a sweet gift, which is now in the garbage, or health. That's one we can all relate to, a feeling of health and vitality. The heart can sometimes struggle. These things become hard. They can be hard to bear. And so, empathy, I think, is a decent enough tool. But seeing her struggling about TikTok, one could have said, it's just social media and you kids are on your phones too much anyway, burp, burp, burp. But I felt deeply that empathy of having lost things myself, of having been separated from communities I love. So we can always see what's in front of us with that feeling inside. We know how it feels. We know how it feels to lose something. We know how it feels to lose a community. We know how it feels to be sad, just period. And then we can move from that place as much as possible. And I think, for me, that's the way. That's the way forward. That's the way of peace. All right, so I'll leave it there. We have a few minutes. If anybody has anecdotes or questions, thoughts about practice. Soren.
I have a little, I relate to what happened. On many levels, I've lost so many Instagram accounts. And about 6-7 years ago, I lost my most important Instagram account. An ex-boyfriend had me constantly reported for things, and I lost years and years and years of really important writings, poetry, photos of my cat that has passed, photos of my family, connections with people. I had 24,000 followers. It was one of those things where it was horrible. It was really terrible at the time. And like thinking about it is just like, wow, that's absolutely gutted. I spent weeks trying to get my account back, only to never, ever get it back. So I had to start a new one. And during that time, I had so many people, including my family and my friends, tell me it's just social media. Like, what does it matter? It shouldn't matter at all. And, losing something like that absolutely destroys some people. I didn't really care too much for TikTok, but I did have 1.2 million followers on TikTok. I had a couple videos of my cat who had passed go viral. And does anyone remember when my sink exploded last year? Anyway, my sink exploded and I was really funny about it. And so I went to go look at TikTok and I was like, oh, this is gone. And there was a moment where I was just like, well, that stinks. But the change, the vast difference from losing an account 7 years ago to losing an account yesterday was palpable. Palpable. Like I could distinctly go like, well, that stinks. But it is what it is, and that's now gone.
Yeah.
But I relate in a lot of those ways of the way Julia went through this, and I can easily go back to those weeks where I was obsessing over trying to figure out how to get this account back, only to realize it will probably never come back. So all those, photos and writings and things don't exist anymore, but they exist within me a little bit. And I slowed back on them.
Yes, Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wondering if you could speak to, so it's about loss and changing of things.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could speak to loss of safety. And thinking about this in two ways. One, sort of personally in the workplace for me right now, but also with the inauguration that is happening tomorrow and the loss of safety that I think a lot of us will feel and have. Big question, but that's something frequently in the practice it's hard to bear.
It is hard to bear. Yes. Yeah, loss of safety. Yeah, so I'm seeing today is kind of this liminal space between, TikTok ending and the inauguration, and it's kind of an odd way to look at things, and at the same time, it's another Sunday, isn't it? It's just another day of the week. But loss of safety, in our tradition, we talk a lot about safety, and there's this term that we use, which is abhaya dana. I have to be a little quick about this because we have kids downstairs, but I'll be quick, and then we can have a longer conversation or pick it back up. We have a term in this framework, in this tradition, which is abhaya dana, and it's often translated as the gift of safety. So offering others the gift of safety, and sometimes offering others the gift of forgiveness. So that's another way that it's translated. But the gift of safety means, acting in ways ourselves that create safety for others. Like here, a lot of us are on the 5 precepts for lay people. So not stealing, not killing, not transgressing our relationships, not lying, staying sober to kind of keep a clear head. And in sort of living on the precepts and practicing a life of generosity and meditation, we are offering, creating that gift of safety for others. But that doesn't mean we feel safe all the time ourselves, because other people are not trying to create safety or offer that gift of safety in many cases. But we, to a degree, we can't control that. We can't control who's creating safety and who's offering it to us. And so through this practice, in practicing, with the precepts and generosity and meditation and all the foundations, not only are we creating safety for others, but over time, we begin to feel safe ourselves, because we have, come to a sense of what's important, to hold on to. And the Buddha said what's important to hold on to is our own integrity, in the world. And so, that's kind of the big picture here. But I think a loss of safety is something that is important to grieve. Like we have to feel it. We need to feel it. And we do feel it, but really looking at it, like recognizing it as real. Like a loss of safety deserves our attention and our grief. So really seeing it, really knowing it, really recognizing that that is what is happening or could be happening. And then I think, preparing the heart and mind for what's next, for the fight or the letting go, or some combination of the two. And may I make a plug for good spiritual friends? Making sure. The Buddha said, Kalyanamitta, good spiritual friends, are the whole of the holy life. So really, as much as possible, spending time with people who are creating safety, who do have our back, who are living a life of integrity, and contributing to that as much as possible to strengthen it. Yeah, there's no good answer, but that's an answer.